Welcome to Chamber Talk with North Orange County Chamber. I'm Andrew Gregson, and our guest today is the Honorable Susan Sonne. Susan is the 71st Mayor of Buena Park, the first being in 1953, and the 7th woman to hold the prestigious position. A long-time resident, Susan lives in the Santa tract of Buena Park with her husband and daughter. She earned a BA in philosophy from the University of Mississippi and serves as the vice chair for the Orange County Power Authority. Additionally, she is a board member for Civic Well, a non-profit dedicated to supporting sustainable solutions and the leaders and communities that implement them. Welcome, Susan. Thank you very much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Susan, I want to start off with one of those really easy questions, but yet sometimes people have to really think about it. If you could sit down and have a chat with anyone, a historical figure or somebody of now, who would you like to do it with and why?
Well, I think I'll start with my favorite president, who is Dwight Eisenhower. It's kind of unusual for a Democrat to choose a Republican president as their favorite, but he was in office when I was born. He had some tremendous ideas about progress in the United States. It was during his time in office that the interstate highway system was built, and so much of the infrastructure in this country came to pass while he was in office. He was very supportive of higher taxes for corporations and very wealthy people, and he also was very much a peace-loving president. Having been a general in World War II, he knew the toll that it took on people, and he thought it was much more important for us to take care of the well-being of American citizens than it was for us to be fighting wars in foreign lands. So, and additionally, he had a granddaughter who was named Susan Elaine, and my mother named me Susan Elaine after his granddaughter. So it has a kind of a special place in my heart.
That is nice. That's a nice story.
Thank you.
So quick, too, as if you'd practiced it. That was fantastic. Well done. What inspired you to first start your career in public service?
It was probably the internet. I had a career in IT, and so when the internet started becoming very popular, it was kind of a natural progression for me to start to seek out what was going on. And I started learning about things that were going on in other communities all over the world and started caring about some of those issues. And it finally occurred to me that I didn't really know what was going on in my own community. And so I started going to council meetings, working with nonprofits, getting involved in the local community to see how things were going in my own community. I was pleasantly surprised that so many of the issues that were plaguing other communities were not happening here in our city. But it was also at a time when I was very concerned about homelessness, and I wanted to see us making some efforts to solve that issue as much as we could at the local level. And I got involved on the homeless committee for the city of Buena Park. From that, I became a part of the first police chief's advisory board. And knowing what was going on, how our city was progressing, and then watching our current council at the time and the choices they were making, I just felt like I could make a contribution. And I decided to run in 2016. I ran against Mayor Smith at the time. Came in second in that election, and immediately started my campaign for 2020. So I was elected in 2020 and sworn in December of that year, and have been serving since then.
Now, just out of interest, because you mentioned something there about you were running against basically an incumbent. He was the mayor at the time. For people who are running for city council, is that a difficult thing to run for if you're running against an incumbent, or like for yourself, does it make a difference because you're going to be running again for the city council? Does it make a big sway for the individual who's campaigning at the time?
It seems to, especially if you've done a job that has been appreciated by the residents who live here, and then you haven't made any bad mistakes. People tend to be happy staying with the status quo because they know what they're getting and they're happy with what they're getting at the moment.
So you mentioned about IT, and way down on your very list of things there, it mentioned you're a consultant for the state of Utah, I believe, and you sort of had a career in IT up to through to management. IT means a lot. What type of things were you doing in the IT world back then?
Well, I started off when I was in college. So I was in college working on a degree in philosophy, and I was sick of not having an answer to any question. In philosophy, there's multiple answers to every question, and none of them are solid, factual, this is
Right.
the answer. And there was an opening for a programmer on campus. I had just taken a symbolic logic course in philosophy, and the IT department on campus gave a logic test for that position, and I scored very high on it, and they made me an offer. Interestingly enough, my first job, it paid a little over $11,000 a year, and I remember thinking back in 1979 that was such a huge amount of money. I couldn't imagine ever having made that kind of money. It's kind of funny looking back on it now.
Sure.
But I started off programming punch cards and I worked, and then eventually we moved to, we had dumb terminals not connected to the computer where we would write programs online, and then they would be fed into our computer.
Wow.
I worked on grade systems and application systems for the university. And it was great because I had an opportunity to keep taking courses while I was working there. But after I graduated, I was ready to move out. The world was becoming very exciting in the early 80s for people in IT. And so I had an opportunity to move all around the country working for different companies, learning more, and sort of in the beginning, early exciting phases of IT, mostly programming basic systems for companies.
That really is truly amazing, because you would have seen the whole world evolve from not really having anything to what it is today.
Yeah, and the last thing I was doing when I left was managing web-based systems, which I couldn't have programmed
Back
to
in
save my life,
right.
but managing them. So yeah, it's been quite an evolution in that world.
Yeah,
And
you're going
now
to get
we're
used to change.
looking at AI and
Right.
yeah.
We were using it today in the office.
There you
go.
go.
Yeah, that's awesome. So being in your life's journey, obviously, going from public life, sort of like in the public sector, and now into the service industry with helping the community and everything you do, what types of unique challenges have you faced during your journey through life so far?
Well, one of the most significant things is I'm neurodivergent. I'm autistic and ADHD. And I was diagnosed in my late 50s, which is fairly common for women. Women are not typically even considered as possible neurodivergent without having your own understanding of it and taking it to a doctor and saying, here's what life is like for me. I think I might be, and getting their confirmation. It meant IT was really a natural and wonderful kind of work for me because I typically sat at a desk and coded alone without much interaction with other people, which was much easier for an autistic person with ADHD. But getting diagnosed changed my life because I was prescribed medication for my ADHD, which allowed me the ability to focus and interact with people much more naturally and easily. And that's why I was able to start working in nonprofits and getting more involved in my community and eventually deciding to run for office. As a person who is autistic with ADHD, it's very important to me that all kinds of people have access to our government and have an ability to have a voice. And so one of the things that I have worked on since I've been elected was making sure that people know that they're welcome and that we have accessibility for everyone.
Now, you mentioned earlier on there, it's not often, or it's harder to diagnose in women, obviously, because women are smarter than men, so they're able to hide it, I'm assuming. So what made you take that first step to think, oh, hang on a minute, maybe I need to go and see the doctor about this?
Well, I was seeing a therapist for some stress issues with work, and she said, I think you may have ADHD, and I think you should go to a psychiatrist and get diagnosed. So I did, and he had a test on a computer and all of that, and I did have a mild case. But in talking with him, I started remembering a number of things from my childhood. For instance, when I was a kid and I would get stressed, I used to rock and flap my hands.
Oh, okay.
And when I was an adult, I started seeing movies about autism. It started being discussed a lot more, and I realized that behavior was something similar to what I had seen there. And so I asked my doctor about it, and we talked more, and he said, yes, you are autistic. So it's funny because I got medication for ADHD, and I take like half of the smallest dose of anything that you can take because he wanted me to not have to deal with the effects of too much medication. And I didn't think about the autism. And it's really only been in the last 5 years through social media that I've started to learn about the challenges that I have personally that are common throughout the autistic community. And it's been very helpful for me to do that. One of the things it has done is it allows me to manage my life in a way so that I have less stress. If I'm going to an event, I want to know every single detail about that event before I go so that I can manage my own feelings around it. I need to know how to drive there, where I'm going to park, what door should I go in, who should I talk to, am I going to speak, will there be food, what will the temperature and the dress code be. All of those things help me to prepare for it in such a way that it doesn't become stressful for me. I've lowered my stress in that way to the extent that my doctors have been very surprised at my numbers when I go for my annual checkups, that I'm much healthier than I was before. And it's typical that autistic people tend to die younger. And one of the reasons for that is the amount of stress.
Right.
And so being able to learn how to manage my stress in that way has been a tremendous help for me.
This must have been an amazing, empowering moment for you over the years to learn to be able to manage something like that. So nobody'd ever know. So not that I don't know there's any difference, but I'm just saying that's amazing that you're able to empower yourself to be able to better manage your whole life, I suppose.
Yes, and it's true that girls do mask. That's what we say when we try to hide the sort of typical facial expressions or mannerisms that an autistic person might have in order to make the people around us feel comfortable. And because I did that so naturally
Right.
as a young girl, wanting to please people, as a young woman, it's almost to the point now where I can't not mask. It's like I learned how other people behaved, the expressions that they had, what felt natural in communication, and now I do it automatically. So I think it's becoming more common for women to be diagnosed, and I think that's a good thing because it's going to help people manage their lives and their stress a lot better.
Yeah, I think so. It makes a lot of sense, to be honest with you.
One of the significant things for me about autistic people tend to be very direct. not as big of a fan of small talk and that sort of thing. And I do tend to be very direct with people. And I've kind of had to learn to soften that a little bit because most people want a little, hello, how you doing? Before they get into the meat of whatever conversation you're going to have. The other thing is I tend to be very logical. And when I make decisions, I want to make them based on evidence, on measurements, on facts, rather than on emotions.
Well, I think sitting on City Council, that would be very important,
yes,
I would say.
I agree.
You mentioned there a little bit that when you were a little girl, and obviously I believe you're not native to California, unlike myself. I suppose I'm not either. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in a little town called Bruce, Mississippi. I started to school in a neighboring town in the Mississippi Delta, Indianola, home of the blues, Mississippi Delta. And went to school there for a while and then came back and finished school in Bruce. It was a typical sleepy southern town, very hot and humid. And I always thought I should be used to and enjoy hot and humid weather because I grew up there, but I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I love California weather. This feels more like home than home did. But I grew up in the hills of Mississippi, near the birthplace of Elvis Presley.
Oh, wow.
So blues and country music were around me all the time.
So when did you move over to California?
Well, after getting into IT at the university, I moved from there to Texas, Tennessee, Oklahoma, New York, New Jersey, San Diego, San Francisco, Salt Lake City, back to San Diego, and then here in
Buena Park?
North Orange County.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
You've traveled.
I have. I enjoyed being able to go to new places, and IT was the perfect career to allow me to do that.
And in your experience in all those different cities or different states, because they're all different, right? Mm-hmm. Is there any that, I mean, obviously your favourites here, but are there any sweet favourites that you have?
I enjoyed my time in New York City. It was, I did all the touristy stuff, and I certainly missed some of the things like bagels and pizza and things like that from New York. But honestly, nothing has felt more like home than Southern California has.
Yeah. What types of developments have you seen and are you seeing is going to grow and change for Buena Park?
Well, one of the things that Buena Park had been experiencing both before and during the COVID pandemic was some developments, especially on Beach Boulevard, that had stagnated and were not moving forward. And so one of the goals that we've had was in looking for the kinds of developers, especially for the entertainment corridor, that had the expertise and the financial backing to be able to bring projects to the city that were going to enhance the city, provide great value, and be completed in a reasonable amount of time. I know there's been a tremendous amount of frustration about the projects that just sat and sat and sat. And certainly there were some things that happened during the COVID pandemic that made a lot of that happen. But it was more than that, too. And so we got really serious about vetting the development companies that were coming in here to be sure that they would be bringing the right thing to Buena Park.
And is that something that do you feel that that's something that's sometimes missed within city councils generally, that the vetting part? Because obviously, like you say, it's pretty crucial, and you've stumbled across it, right?
Well, and that's politics. People often will have an idea for something. The idea of it sounds really great, and so they want to bring that to their city. As a matter of fact, when we were first discussing it, and we came down to the three top projects for the Movieland Wax Museum location, and when we were first hearing about them and reading about them, I had a particular order of preference in my mind for them. It changed completely after meeting with the developers, looking at their vision, looking at the backgrounds they had, and what they were prepared to bring to the city. And I'm very excited that we're going to have a Surfworks location there to have surfing here in Buena Park.
Yeah, that's cool. You've almost segued us straight into the next question, talking about development. Could you share of any upcoming projects and, of course, incentives, initiatives, beg your pardon, that the City of Buena Park are moving with?
Yes. I'll go back to Surfworks for a second. It being the only one in Southern California is going to be a very standout kind of business here in Buena Park. At first I thought, why would someone who's so close to the ocean where you can go surf come to Buena Park to surf? And surfers talked to me about the fact that they will go and sit at the beach for hours waiting for that one wave to ride, to get their practice. While coming to Surfworks, you can get 12 waves an hour at the height that you need to do your practice. That's a much more efficient and productive use of your time if you're looking to become a better surfer. Then the programs that they talked about doing for our youth and for the disadvantaged in our community, I just think it's going to be a great asset to Buena Park. I'm also very excited about the housing project that's coming up for the Sears location. It's had some controversy in my district, and I understand that people are nervous about change because we never know exactly how it's going to turn out. But the housing units are so desperately needed, both in our community and throughout California. And the young people that I've talked to that are looking for a place to live and looking to move out of their parents' home and all of that. And then some of older people who would like to sell their homes. They don't want to manage a large house on their own anymore. Having the kinds of housing units that will suit those people, as well as the people that work in our community and service in restaurants and in businesses, is so important. One of my proudest moments as a council member was about that development when one of my constituents said to me, "I'm against that project, but at the council meeting, you asked really good questions and you gave really good reasons to why you chose to vote for it, and I still support you." And I thought, I was doing my job. If I can do that, if I can help residents to understand why sometimes we do things that they're not really thrilled about because of the overall benefits to the community, and they're accepting of that, I think it's a great thing for the community.
I think we definitely agree on that. The Chamber was definitely for that project. I mean, it'll also help the mall area there. It's going to bring more business in. It's more sales tax. It means it's more revenue that the city can do to spend on the community again. And you were totally right. Those folks who are trying to sell the homes now to move into smaller homes, the property value will increase a little bit more, which means they're going to get some extra money, which is going to help them in the future. Yes. I certainly can agree with you, so I'm glad you stuck to that. That was really good. And this sort of leads into the next question, because as a long-time resident here in Buena Park, what do you believe sets the city of Buena Park from others in Orange County?
Wow, I love this city so much. Everywhere I go, whether it's school board meetings or concerts in the park or to local businesses, it continues to have a small town feel here. People care about each other in this community. And when there's someone in need, when there's a problem, there's people that step up all the time. And I'm just so proud of this community and how much we care about each other. I think being at the intersection of the 91 and the 5 makes it a really central and important location business-wise for the county. So we pull in a lot of folks traveling on our freeways through Buena Park. But we love our entertainment corridor. We love the venues that bring so much joy, not only to the visitors that come to see us, but also to our community itself. And nobody's prouder of anything than Buena Park than Knott's Berry Farm, which is well known everywhere. So, and I'm thrilled that Knott's is in my district.
So just as another, moving away slightly from your current position of being the mayor of Buena Park, you also sit on the board for Orange County Power Authority, and this year you're the vice chair. What steps are being taken to promote renewable energy and sustainability actually in the city of Buena Park and beyond?
Yes, joining the Orange County Power Authority was one of the first things that I pushed for when I was elected, because when I was campaigning, one thing that I heard so often from residents was concern about climate change. There's a lot of people very conscious of what's going on the planet and concerned about the future for their kids, for humanity. So being a part of that has been really important to me to ensure not only that we get our energy through renewable energy sources, but also that we have an organization that the income is going to be coming back into the community to support infrastructure here. And that's going to be a huge advantage that we have. Last year, we created a Climate Action Commission, and they are currently working on a climate action and adaptation plan, which will help us to define what are the issues going on in our city with pollutants, our air, our water, and what can we do about it? How can we best prepare to mitigate the problems that are coming our way? We know that summers are getting hotter and hotter. Are we going to be able to provide enough cooling places for people to ensure that all of our residents remain healthy during that time? We have a section of the city, it's not my district, bounded by the 91 and the 5, that has some fairly severe pollution issues. Not surprising, since there's so many cars driving on those freeways. Mm-hmm. So planting more trees is one of our big initiatives at the city, because trees do so much good. They help clean the air. They help in neighborhoods when you have trees. Not only do they help shade homes so they lower energy cost, but they also, the more trees there are in a neighborhood, the slower the traffic goes and the safer our kids are on the streets. And in addition to that, it raises your property value. So continuing to replace our trees and make sure that we have a good tree canopy in the city is a really important effort that we're working on.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, because, you know, the word's thrown around a lot, isn't it, about climate change, because you started off saying climate change. In the larger picture, so sitting on the seats that you sit on, what does climate change mean to, like, Orange County Power Authority or the board, or when you sat on some type of environmental board?
Well, certainly the climate, the temperature, the weather patterns, the fact that we had a hurricane last summer here in Orange County, what that does to erode the infrastructure and increase the temperatures in our cities and impact the natural resources that are so important to us. We have our own water in wells here in the city, and our water wells have clean water. However, most people have heard of PFAS, the toxic things that can get into the water. There is what they call a plume under the city of Fullerton, which is very close to us. So we're very carefully monitoring our water supply to ensure that we're not getting any of those into our water supply. The air, once again, planting trees for that. I also sit on the board of Civic Well, which is a state organization that deals with environmental issues and looking at what's happening throughout the entire state of California. One of the primary things that we have to be concerned about, because we've asked people to move more toward electrification and away from fossil fuels, is how do we provide that energy? We don't have the infrastructure to be able to deal with all of the increases that are coming, moving to electric cars. So how do we deal with that? How do we make sure that we support the infrastructure that needs to happen and make sure that our power is reliable and affordable? I'm also very concerned about people who live in lower income communities, possibly in rental areas, that they don't have any control over what kind of power they get. And if it's fossil fuels, as everyone else moves to electrification, the cost of those fossil fuels then becomes much heavier for those disadvantaged communities. So we have to prepare for the future in a way that those people are supported to have the same advantages as the rest of the community.
So one of the things you mentioned there that sort of caught my ear there was you obviously the cooling places where it's important for people to go off and be cool, in the heat, which makes me think of obviously the homeless. It's increased quite significantly. What are your thoughts on the homeless situation right now?
Well, it's one of the reasons that I got involved in politics in the first place and decided to run for city council. It's an issue that has plagued the entire state of California for quite a long time, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. When I was talking about housing earlier, one of the things that I had discovered in my research is the state of California needs 2.5 million housing units. And at the rate that housing units are being approved in the state, it will take us 25 years to get to where we need to be today.
Wow.
So certainly the biggest issue is you cannot solve the homeless issue without homes. People have to have a place to put, to have a roof over their head. So working on housing has certainly been one of my top priorities. We also have a navigation center here in Buena Park, and I continue to look at the effectiveness of it and what we need to do to ensure that the people are being treated well and are actually finding solutions that allow them to go off the streets and into a home of their own. It's a slow process. It's certainly difficult. There are many people with issues, mental health issues, issues of substance abuse, and all of that also needs to be remedied in order for us to solve this issue. But just because there's not an easy and quick answer doesn't mean we don't need to be putting a tremendous amount of effort into finding the solutions and continuously working on what we can do to make it better.
Totally agree. That's very true. I totally agree with those words. As we're sort of moving along, you mentioned earlier, obviously you represent District 3, and it would be it wouldn't be sensible of me not to mention that you're running again for council. How is that going? I mean, you have a full calendar here. You have to delegate other council members to do other things that you can't do anymore because you're too busy doing the mayor stuff. I mean, how do you fit that all in?
Well, I am going to have to do that, and I will. For me, mostly, it's about the opportunity to talk with residents. One of my favorite things to do is to go out into the neighborhoods and to let people know I am your complaint department. When things are going wrong, I'm the person that you call to see what we can do about it. Now, I'm not always able to find the perfect solution for people, but those issues are the reason that I'm here. I have big dreams of things happening for the long term, for the future, but I also have to keep my eye on what's going on today. Sometimes there's a coyote problem. Sometimes it's the traffic on Beach Boulevard during Halloween haunt, or roads that need paving. So that's where I get my joy in this work, and so the opportunity to continually talk with residents is not only the important part of doing the job that I'm doing, but also part of what I will need to do for my campaign. Because I want to know from people whether or not I'm doing the job they want me to be doing. The resident that made the comment about still supporting me in spite of the project at Sears, that was very gratifying, that I was able to explain things in such a way that they knew that it was something that had to be done. I love the fact that my district is the one that has the mall, that has the Beach Boulevard from the 91 South. We have so many excellent opportunities for fun, enjoyment, great restaurants. Certainly everybody loves Porto's, and you can always tell because there's a line every time you go to get in. Many people know that we have the only Gudetama Cafe in the world at the Buena Park Mall. I was there for opening day, and there were about 3,000 people in line for that event. So that's really exciting. So watching this district grow and putting the checks and balances on it to make sure that it grows in a way that is safe and profitable and helpful for the residents of this community is the most important part of what I'm doing.
Now, I believe that your district, you got a little over 17,000 residents in that area, and you did mention some sort of like very significant landmarks there. For those who are listening and not quite sure what the area is in District 3, would you mind pointing them out?
Absolutely. So it's bordered on the north by the 91 freeway. It's bordered on the west by Knott Avenue down to Crescent. It then goes across Crescent to Western and goes down to the southern edge of the city and then further on to the eastern border.
Oh, wow. That is a big area.
It is.
Yeah, it is. So as we sort of draw to the end of this episode, Susan, we always ask guests, is there anything we missed? Is there anything they would like to share? Sort of like an open mic moment, rather than asking you questions. So, is there anything that you would like to share with the audience today?
Certainly. One of the things that I think that Buena Park needs more of is green spaces. We actually have less park space per capita than just about any city in Orange County. And we have park in the name. So looking for more spaces to put trees and green spaces is very critical. And our parks are used so much, as well as the Edison Walking Trail, which we are continuing to develop and plan to develop all the way across to the eastern edge of the city.
Oh, lovely.
Providing that kind of outdoor open space for our residents to be able to get out, get fresh air, and be with each other is important. We've also have an initiative for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the city. We have a richness in this city in the number of cultures that are represented here. And if you've ever been to our Culture Fest in September, you know that we have a lot of great things to choose from. And it's certainly reflected in the restaurants available in our city. Being able to provide things in the languages that people in our city speak, to encourage and welcome everyone in this city to be a part of it, to have a voice, is a key aspect of how we govern in this city.
That's a very good ending, that was, Susan. That was very good. Definitely you should be the mayor or something. You'd got to go on top of that. So listeners, thank you very much for listening today. We invite you to join our email list by visiting nocchamber.com and selecting sign up for e-news on the center page. For more interviews, visit chambertalk.podbean.com.